another episode of Unfiltered Romance Nights. We are your hosts, Colleen.
And I'm Marjorie. Tonight's episode, we have indie author of disturbingly dark romance books, Alina May. Welcome to the Unfiltered Romance Nights podcast, and we are so excited to have you.
Thank you, guys. I'm so excited to be here.
So before we discuss this month's featured book, Wanna Play a Game, we have kind of like a few icebreaker questions for you.
Sure.
So how did you get starting with your writing journey, and did you or do you have another career in addition to?
Yeah, so I got started when I was really young. I've written for my whole life, and it was always just something that I did for fun. And I wanted to major in creative writing in college, and I was like, it's hard to get jobs doing that. So I got a degree in English with a concentration in creative writing. And then I got a job in the workforce that had nothing to do with any of that. And while I was working that job, I was like, man, I miss writing. And I got back into it, and I published my first book for fun. And then I was like, I can make money doing this. This is kind of awesome.
What was your first book?
My first book is Better Run.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I read that one when it first came out.
Mm.
Or did I order for it? I don't remember. It was like if it's like more than
I don't
or
either.
two ago, it's like I don't remember. But I remember reading it.
I remember vibes, but I don't remember like character names, plots. I'm like, that was a great book, but I don't remember.
Right?
See, now I don't feel so bad. I never remember names.
I mix them up, like especially if there's like similar to other books that I've like read. It's like, well, I know I've heard this name before. I just don't remember where. But it's horrible when somebody like asks you, like, oh, I saw that you read this, and I was like, don't ask me because I'm not I don't remember.
Yep.
I know.
So like on your off time, besides writing or reading, do you have any other hobbies that you kind of do?
Reading is kind of my hobby. It's my favorite thing. But I do have a daughter, and she's pretty young, so I spend a lot of my time hanging out with her, making sure she doesn't stick her fingers in the sockets, and like wondering is that a turd on the floor, or did she chew up chocolate? Like, which one is it? So
no.
my hands are pretty full, so for fun, I read.
Totally understandable.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like to do. I should get out more, but I don't know. Sometimes the outside world's a little icky.
Oh, yeah, overrated. No. For sure.
No, I think the only time I go out is if my son's like, can we go somewhere? And I'm like, sure. But it's like we live in a small town, so there's not really a lot to do. Mm-hmm. And right now we're still in the winter, so his thing's like, can we go up at the mountains so I can go snowboard? And I was like, okay, you can go snowboard. I'll pay for it, but I'll be inside where the fire is.
Yeah. Well, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to do it. If you had to pick one, who would be your favorite author?
Oh,
I know. I did it. I went there.
You went there.
Listen, I live by the why choose standard. But, okay, so I'm a mood reader. Very much so more now that I've become an author, because, like, I know, like, what I want, and, like, in that mood, I will pick what I want from, like, that genre. So I don't always stay in the dark romance genre, because it's hard to write and read and listen to and consume a ton of dark romance all the time. It gets really heavy. Like, I start feeling icky. So I switch back and forth. I'm in my Omegaverse era at the moment, which I love because it's always their fated mates. Like, they're always going to end up together. Marie McKay is one of my favorites right now. I'm actually like binging through her books at the moment because she has a really great mix of enemies to lovers, which I love, but also like that fated mates element. Why choose? It's so fun.
Yeah. Marjorie, you have to read it. It's all about the nodding. I promise you.
Listen, it's so good.
With all the list, the never-ending TBR that we have, it's like so hard. And I've been like a mood reader as well. So, and usually the only thing that can take me out is mafia romance. And even then, it's like, it's going to take me a long time to like read stuff. And, I mean, if there's an audiobook for it, I might do the audiobook.
There you go. Marie McKay has a lot of audiobooks, I think, but I love mafia romance. I haven't read one in so long. I need to read one.
Well, since I know you said you're on your Omegaverse era, but do you have like a trope that you like to read specifically?
Enemies to lovers. Every time. Yeah. I love that tension. I also love white shoes, although I will read outside of the white shoes, but if you get like a good enemies to lovers, white shoes, I am there. I don't care what genre it is. I will just eat that up. It's so good.
How do you feel about friends to lovers? That's a tough one for me.
I can't even think of one off the top of my head I've read recently, if that tells you how I feel about it.
I know.
I think enemies to lovers just hit differently, especially once they get together. It's just that hate stuff.
Yeah, I think just it depends on people's upbringing too. Like, I'm generally more comfortable with characters who don't like each other at first, because in my own personal life, like, I'm used to that kind of interaction. So when I read like a friends to lovers, sometimes I'm a little bit distrusting of like the friends themselves, and that pulls me out of the book. I want to feel comfortable like in the book and with the dynamics, and then have that healing that comes with they're always going to be lovers after the enemies part. Like, it's like therapy reading that.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, and I feel like the MMCs will always like, like, I'll burn the world for you kind of thing, or like, like, as much as I hate you or whatever, like, I still don't want anyone touching you, or you can't have anybody else besides me. Right. But I hate you. It's just, I don't know.
Oh, it's so good. Chef's kiss.
I know. How do your friends and family members feel about your writing, and have they read any of your books?
Well, I'm a masked author, so my family does not know. So they don't. Yeah. Unfortunately, I grew up in a environment that's not positive towards like any books that have to do with sex, any books that have to do with LGBTQ, really anything in the genre that I write. So that was something I didn't want to, like, I didn't want my worlds to coincide. Not that they can't, not that I'm like ashamed of what I do. I didn't really want to pick that fight with my family at the place I was at. I'm sure they'll find out at some point, but not for now.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, my mom knows, I hope my mother-in-law doesn't watch this, but my mom knows like I'm freaky. So, me and my mom are like best friends. So I'll tell her about some of the books, and she's like, "Oh, give me a break. It's not even make any sense. How could they put that there?" And I said, "Because they can, and because it's fiction."
Yes, because it's fiction.
It only makes sense in the fictional world. Like, that's why we gravitate towards it, because we know like half of the things that MMCs do in fiction is not. It's not applicable. Like, they're all gonna go straight to jail.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean,
no, all of my characters belong in jail. Like, if they were real life, I would run from them. But they're fiction, so we're good.
Yeah.
So, how many books kind of do you typically release in a year? Like, do you have it scheduled, or kind of like, whenever you finish and then go through all the editing process and all that stuff and then publish?
So this is I haven't even had a second full year in publishing. I find that I can do about 3 books a year. That's pushing it a little bit for me personally, because when I write under a deadline, I start to like feel the pressure of the deadline, and then I don't want to write anymore, and then it just drags the process on for way too long. But I can typically release about 3 in a year, and that means I usually write about 3, but they're like staggered. So like the book that I just released, I finished writing last year, so on and so forth.
Oh, what was that? Is it Make Me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. A quick question about that. Do you recommend reading the, gosh, I forgot the other author's name.
The Mercenary and the Mortician?
Yes.
That one?
Do
yes.
you recommend reading that first and then yours, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. So they're interconnected. Okay. It just depends what you like. So the Mercenary and the Mortician has a lot of like a lot more lore of the world that we created in it. So if you enjoy that lore, I would read that one first and then read mine. Mine's more of a fast-paced like thriller, and is like half the length. But so it just depends what you're in the mood for, really.
I'll have to put that on my list.
I already have that on my list. As soon as I saw the when you guys put it when it's going to release, I was like, okay, I'm gonna add those because I've been wanting to like get more into romance.
I love it.
Me too.
Why? I don't get it. Like I don't know. It's just something that's hot. I just saw a clip of red, white, and royal blue. I just happened to be like doom scrolling on one of the apps, and they showed a particular scene. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I have to see that.
I haven't seen it yet. It's so fascinating writing like an MM. I mean, there's so much layers and complications to it, but even just the power dynamics, which is something that I focus on a lot in my books, like typically if you're writing MF, like there's always going to be an imbalanced power dynamic because it's always a man versus a woman, at least in our culture. And when you're writing MM, that like goes away because they're on an equal playing field. So it's fascinating. I love reading about it and writing about it.
Well, I will say in Want to Play a Game, it was very much Ryder at the top, and he kind of kept everybody in line, so I like when there's someone who's more alpha, if you say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Ryder's definitely like the Dom of the group. Like not only because Doms can be outside of the sexual world, they can also be like in control of everything. So he's kind of like both realms. He's like, no, I'm going to control the way this house is run, who gets the groceries, when they get the groceries, like, what you guys do as people outside of the bedroom too.
Yeah. And I think it was just his personality, like with him having like, was it OCD maybe, or like control issues? I don't think it could be any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, for anybody that hasn't read it, sorry, I'm gonna spoil it. But like even when he was in jail, you can tell like, he still is the alpha or the dom, because the other two characters are still kind of like, oh well, we can't do this, or anything like that. It's still like he's still pretty much a part, even though he's like not there physically present.
Yeah. That's the way he controls the chaos. Like some people like to have the control taken from them and it gives them peace. And some people like taking that control and he likes taking it.
I'm going to put you on a spot again.
Are you going to ask me to pick another favorite?
Something. I guess. So out of all the books you have written, which one would you say most difficult to write?
Ooh. I love that question. Okay, that's such a multi-layered question. From a technical standpoint, the most difficult one to write was Better Hide. So I have Better Run, which was my first one, and it was kind of a novella, very fast-paced, not a lot of character development. And then a lot of the feedback that I got on that one, which it was my debut, was that like I didn't do a lot of character development, which it wasn't originally intended to, but I kind of left people hanging a little bit. So when I came to write the second book, which I did not plan on writing, I had to create all of this character development within a world that was already established and already published. And so it was, technically speaking, very difficult to try and go back through and be like, okay, well, where can I add this backstory? Because I would have layered it in if I were like rewriting the first book. I would have layered it in different spots, but that wasn't an option. So that one, and actually what I did is I wrote Better Run and then I wrote Want to Play a Game to practice that. And I was like, well, how can I create this character development? Really, how can I create chemistry between characters that is other than they're all just hot? You know what I mean? Like they're all just mutually hot. So, they like each other. So I practiced that with Want to Play a Game, and then I came back in with Better Run, and I wrote that character development.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because I remember Better Run was just basically, you know, it's like you said, it was a novella. It was very fast paced. Everything happened within like just. I was like, oh, what is going on? Like, I felt bad for the FMC, and it was just like, is she gonna get away or?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how you're gonna answer this, or are you gonna pick any? Do you have a favorite out of all your books that you've written?
Oh. Well, I just released Make Me, and that one's very close to my heart. I really enjoyed writing that one. That one kind of has a lot of humor mixed in, because my books tend to be really, really heavy. So in Make Me, there's a stuffed animal that talks to one of the main characters, and he was so fun to write. And it's a very heavy topic book, but like it was fun, like so fun to mix in that humor. And there's a lot of me in that book in particular. But probably I also loved writing Wanna Play Game. Those two are one of my top favorites.
Okay. All right. I think this might be the last on the spot question, and then and then we won't do anymore. Okay. If you had to pick 3 words to describe your books, what would they be?
Dark, first of all. Fucked up. I mean, I wouldn't. Does that count as 2 or what?
Sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I write to a lot of people who have experienced like darkness in the real world, and for us, it's comforting to like see it in a book. But it's definitely, my books are not for everybody for that reason, because they are really, really messed up. There's a lot of bad things that happen in them that should never happen in real life.
And it really pisses me off when you have such judgmental people come for our dark romance, book talk, romance, whatever it is, community, because they're seeing it at such a surface level and not realizing that this is very healing for some people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, people, I think they just approach it I try to have grace, because it's probably from trauma, you know, like having such a strong response to something is probably their own trauma. But
sure.
I think where we trip up is where we assume that everybody heals the same way, and that's not necessarily true. And if you're trying to push that aggressively on people, that's where you become kind of the aggressor to your own like group of wounded people who are just trying to heal.
I know.
Yeah. And I think like that's why I like, you know, the dark romance, specifically community. It's like, you know, we kind of almost everyone that you interact with relates to a specific book, like a dark romance book, because it's healing to them. I mean, I'm the same way. But, you know, to see some people where they're like, oh, they just assume because they read the trigger warning or something like that, that it's like, oh, it's all bad. And I'm like, well, you didn't read the book. You can't judge it based on the trigger warnings, you know? It's just like, if you have those triggers, you don't have to read it.
Right.
But the amazing thing about reading is there's so much consent involved. Like, to actually complete the process of reading, you are consenting to that kind of material, and if you don't like it, you can put it down. Like, you know what I mean? 99% of the time, nobody's forcing you to read it. So it's such a consent-based world, and that's what we love.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think like when I first started reading dark romance, that's like when I found out like about trigger warnings, just because before when I would read, I never knew about those, like unless I just didn't read through the very first page and I just went straight to the chapters. But I was just like, what is a trigger warning? Like, why do people ask me to check a trigger warning like when I'm reading? And I was like, oh, okay. But you know, I always go in blind anyway, and I can't read really like contemporary anymore. So for me, it's like I don't check the trigger warnings, but that's just me personally. Obviously, everybody needs to check their trigger warnings if they do have triggers.
Definitely. Yeah. And keep in mind that a lot of authors don't like list the exact warnings at the beginning of the book, because that can get you booted off of Amazon. So if you're listing, that's, you know, some people are like, oh, I just go in blind. Like, I try to make sure like, hey, all of my warnings are listed on my website. Like I don't want to get banned from selling on Amazon by listing all of these trigger words that their bots scan for. So
right.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh shit, I lied.
I know. I was like looking at the questions. So I was like, you lied about
Can't
that.
trust me.
Now it's just gonna be like, I thought it was the last one previously.
Oh, you guys are good.
Okay, so this is gonna be like a 3-part. So the first part is like, do you have a favorite couple?
Couple that I've written?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
It could be a why choose dynamic.
Probably right now, the 3 in Make Me. They have such a fun, like, love-hate relationship. 2 of them, Ronan and Logan, are constantly at each other's throats. Like, they bicker back and forth. And then I have the sweet character who is just very nervous. He has a stutter, and he comes in and he kind of balances out, like, the whole couple. I build all of my characters for each other specifically. So I give them all characteristics that they all need together in the group. So they're my newest ones, so I love them.
Yeah. I love that. Like, you know, where it's a balanced relationship, even though there's more than 2, you know, because I've seen why choose where there's like an imbalance. And I was like, and I can't, like, that takes me out because it's like, well, then it's no longer an equal relationship. Like, yes, there's usually an alpha, but the dynamics is always equal. You know, in terms of the relationship.
Yeah, that's tricky.
So I love that you do that there was always a balance where nobody gets left out or, you know, anything like that. So. Yeah. Do you have a favorite MMC?
Okay, listen. Ronan and Sawyer, I always lean towards the crazy ones, like the ones who are, hey, let's go hurt somebody. Like those are so fun to write. Yeah, probably Ronan and Sawyer are very similar to each other in that they're just a little bit unhinged. Just a little bit.
Yeah. I like Sawyer.
I love Sawyer.
He's fun.
I'm like trying to think, like, do we even like ask this other question? But like, okay, we're just gonna ask it, like FMC.
Sure.
Anyone.
Oh, my favorite FMC?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wrote, you're not even going to be surprised. She's very unhinged. Riley is one of my favorite FMCs. She is in my Ready or Not book. It is an FFM. So she's one of like the villains. And she's on this like warpath of vengeance. And she's actually a sociopath. So she, because of like a mix of genetics and upbringing, she doesn't feel feelings. And so I brought her together with a psychopath who was born that way and an autistic female who they all together like are learning to manage quote unquote love when none of them experience love in the conventional way.
Oh, very interesting. I'll have to read that too.
It was really fun to write because, you know, how do you write a love story between people who are not just like, oh, I love you, let me give you hugs and kisses. Like, that's not their story at all.
But those are like the interesting characters. Like, you know, when like you feel it from like when you're reading it, not just like, oh, I said I love you, that means I love you. But like you actually feel like, or, you know, see how they show their love for that person.
Yeah. It's a lot of like showing the love. Like for some of my one character who is autistic, she has a safe food and that's chicken nuggets. And so the characters will bring her chicken nuggets, granted through unconventional ways, you know, they're serial killers, but they will bring her food because they see her. They're not going to be like, I love you, but they're going to be like, oh, I brought this for you. Like, this is what you like. This is for you.
Okay.
No,
we're going to switch gears now. We're done.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about Want to Play a Game because that was our February book club box.
Yes.
I think it came out beautifully. So
I'm so excited.
I'm sending them out next week. I'm just like waiting on things. It's like, you know, the winter storm is always like affect shipping. So I apologize for being late.
I keep telling my friend, I'm like, I'm so excited. I just want to hold it in my hands.
Yeah.
I think it's like
now.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I know that has the I don't know if this is not the right explanation. Is it like rainbow foiling?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Yeah, something like
rainbow,
that.
but-
Yeah.
Iridescent? I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's it. I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah, that was a surprise because when I was picking colors, we were just like, oh, let's just do silver because everything else is colorful. So when I actually got it, and I was like, wait, that looks like it's, it when you twist it, move it around, it almost changes colors, and I was like, oh, I love that. Like, it's a surprise.
Yes.
Now, with Wanna Play a Game, what was the inspiration for this book, and how did the story come about?
So I usually start with like a concept, like, okay, I want this many like male main characters, and I want them to kidnap her, and then, I want them to have this love-hate relationship. So I usually start with this gigantic plot, right? And then I'm like, what kinds of people would do this? Like, if you are asking for 3 men to kidnap a woman, like, who in the world is going to do this? Like, how is this going to work out? And so I really started crafting all 3 of my MMCs first, and I gave them all like different characteristics so that they would all want to be together, because they are like all in a relationship prior to the FMC joining in. And then I gave my FMC, Callie, characteristics that would trigger each one of the men. So Sawyer has trauma from his mom being an alcoholic and abuser of substances. And so that's why I made Callie an alcoholic, because I wanted to push them together to heal. And then Miles has trauma from growing up in a home with domestic violence. And that is why I gave Callie an abusive boyfriend. And then Ryder has religious trauma, and that is why I gave Callie her religious trauma from her family, because I really wanted a reason for them to connect on a level other than just we're all mutually hot. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was an opportunity to be enemies at first, and then either you're going to heal from it or you're going to let it push you like all the way apart.
I think it did a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure did.
I like, how like, it's obviously it's a captive romance. Like she was captive, but then, Ryder kind of, letting her go, but then she made the choice of going back. I love that, where she finally figured out, I was like, oh, why, like, I do have feelings for them and I'm gonna go back to them kind of thing, where it's not just like people are thinking it's like, oh, it's like Stockholm or whatever. It's like she did end up falling for them,
There's definitely a level of Stockholm in it for sure.
Right.
And Ryder,
Stockholmy.
It was. Ryder wanted her to have more time away from the group because of the Stockholm. Like, he was like, I want this to be like a legitimate decision that she's making, not because like, she just got out 2 weeks ago from being kidnapped. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the other guys were not going to have that as an answer. So that didn't work out for Ryder. Right. But
yeah, Sawyer was like, yeah, no, I don't give a shit what she's got. She's coming back.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I don't care. I love her. I'm going to go get her.
Hey, it worked out in the end.
It did.
It did.
Everybody was happy.
Yeah. I still think she had that, at least she still got that, I guess, quote unquote choice, like even if it's like, what was it, couple hours a day or something like that, like still, there
was the illusion of choice there for sure.
So there's that one scene in the book, like the torture of Ben. So how did you kind of like come up with the idea of the cage and the rats on his stomach?
So that is a medieval torture technique. Yeah, so I did not come up with any of that. And I actually had a friend who was very much into like that kind of stuff. Like, that was her special interest. And so she was talking to me about that. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. And I actually asked her too, because originally they chopped off Ben's appendage. And originally I was going to have them skin it and then make it like a glove and use it that way. But then I asked this reader, and she's worked in the medical field, and she was like, well, the skin is actually really, really, really thin. So like getting it off like a glove is going to be relatively difficult. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just chop the whole appendage off. Like, we'll just do it that way.
Yeah. I mean, not too TMI, but like, yeah, that the skin is pretty thin.
It's pretty thin. Yeah, so it wouldn't like. I mean, I'm sure you could, but I think it'd be difficult to get like just a glove off.
Yeah,
A bit time consuming, probably.
It would be, which they would probably enjoy. I probably could have let them in time. Yeah.
Yeah, because that would be torture.
Definitely. It would be. Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah. Listen, I was the second time reading it because I didn't remember. I was nervous when they were like, who was it, Sawyer who said it? When he was like, turn around, I'm going to use this, give you one last beep with Ben. I was like, no.
I was too. I was like, what are you doing, Sawyer? It's like, whoa, can we hold up? And I was doing a writing sprint with Lola King, and that's basically where you just sit for like 20 minutes and you write in silence and you see how many words you can get. And I was not getting very many words because I was like, is she gonna get banged with this thing or not? Like, but then Ryder came in and he's like, this is because he was very antagonistic towards her for the whole book. And at that point he was like, let me step in and be a little bit of the good guy here. Like, I'm gonna take a step in this relationship and I'm gonna say you're going too far.
I mean, it's a little bit step too far. It's like they're trying to make her fall in love with them, but then if you do that, it's kind of like, well, that defeats the purpose.
Yeah. They did a reality check for sure.
Right. Yeah.
That's Sawyer. Too far.
But it's funny though. Like, I love his character. I think that I gravitated towards him in the beginning, and then once Ryder, came back, it's like, oh, sorry. Like, I love Ryder.
Yeah.
So, in respect of the murder scenes, like tortures and stuff like that, and the associated traumas for main characters, did you have to do like a lot of research for writing those?
So without like talking exactly about what my old job was,
okay.
Unfortunately, I do have a lot of knowledge about death. So some things, yes, but also like I have seen firsthand how trauma impacts people, and also like what happens to bodies, and just stuff like that. So some of it is research and some of it is just me trauma dumping.
Gotcha. Okay. Hey, that probably makes for the best stories, honestly. And it's probably very cathartic.
It is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I appreciate that this story was able to come to a happily ever after. Do all of your stories, or will they all have the happily ever after?
They all do, yeah. I don't like reading. I don't like crying. Like you can bully me up into a certain point in a story, but then if like the end is just bullying, like I need aftercare. Like I need to be happy. I won't say I will never write a book that's not a happy ending, but I do plan on writing all happy endings.
Yeah. I think that I jumped in, unbeknownst to me, I had jumped into this horror erotica.
Oh, yeah.
And when I got to the end, I'm like, wait, what? That's it? Like, that's how we're leaving it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, it was wild. That was a wild story. It was good, but it was too wild for me.
Yeah.
The end.
Horror erotica, like, I need, like, a hug and a stuffed animal after, because I'm like, oh, okay, woo! That was a lot.
I think I reached out to you, Marjorie. I'm like, what the fuck did I just read?
See, this is why I avoid those, or sometimes if I don't know the author, it's like I usually go to the blurb section and be like, because sometimes they'll hint in there, like, unconventional HEAs. Like when I see that, I'm like, nope, I can't, because I like my HEAs. I don't, like, I already cry sometimes in my personal life. I don't need to be crying when I'm reading. It's like, it's just too much. Like, then I'm going to be a mess.
I'm okay with it. I just should have maybe had a little heads up. Then I would have been, okay, I know where this is going. But I was like, what?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, perfect example. Like, I read this first generation series, so they all had their happy ever after. And then second generation series, one of the female main character died. But I knew ahead of time. So I was just like, why would you do that? And it's like one of my favorite characters. And I was like, why would you do this to the MMC? It's like, like,
I read a book that my friend wrote recently, and it was an unconventional HEA, and I sent her a voice note, and I was sobbing for like 2 minutes, and she didn't understand like any words I was saying. I was like, and then like at the end, I was like, and this is just a bad day, and I ended the voice message, and she's a bit of a sadist, so she was like, that was funny, but that I just, unless I'm in the mood for it,
yeah.
It's too sad.
It is. And actually, like, when, somebody said that, I was like, okay, well, I won't read the second generation for a while. And it took me a while. Like, it was the second book in the series. So I was like, well, I can't skip it. Because even though they're, like, standalones, they're still interconnected as far as timeline. So I was like, well, I'm going to wait because I know what's going to happen at some point in that book. But I was just like, oh, why you gotta do this to me? It's like,
yeah, it's my heart,
right? So as far as future projects that you can talk about, like, what are your future projects that you're...
So I have a secret project that's coming out in like Halloween season this year, and then I will be writing... The plan is to write the next book in the Hunters Club series, so Want to Play a Game, Ready or Not, and then the next one after that, and then the next one in my Silent Hollow, Make Me Mercenary and Mortician world. But we will see. I never tell people like release dates because I find that it just adds a lot of pressure. So that's like the loosey-goosey plan right now.
It might change.
It might, yes.
That's funny. Are there any genres, subgenres, or specific tropes that you haven't written that you think you might want to write in the future?
Ooh, oh, man. One of these days I would love to write an Omegaverse. One of these days, but we are just in like the enjoying it realm.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. I think all of my books will have a level of darkness through them because that's just who I am as a person, but I could definitely see like an Omegaverse for sure.
Okay, I know you keep looking at me, Kolleen. Like, I will eventually read something. She keeps every time this subgenre topic comes up, and somebody's like, "Oh, Omegaverse," and I'm just like, I want to hide now because I haven't read anything.
I'm getting you. That's what I'm getting you for your birthday. That's what I'll do.
Hold me a book.
Yeah.
Do you have any, like, for future, I guess, any other special editions that you plan that you can talk about, or just like hint, I guess?
I do have a lot of special editions coming out. I'm not allowed to talk about them because of contracts, but I do have signing exclusives that I'll be having at my signings. So I'm going to Wild and Windy in Chicago, and Rare in London, and Sinners and Stardust in Boston, and then Tennessee LitCon in Kingsport, Tennessee. So I'm really excited. My special editions are going to have foiling. They're hardcover with a dust jacket. So the inside is NSFW and then the outside is safe for work. And then it has sprayed edges on it too. So I'm very excited about those.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I just love those special editions.
Me too.
I'm moving to, that's what I'm like making my library, like my bookshelves, is moving towards to just like all special editions, and I'm like selling the other stuff unless they're model cover, then they're staying. Otherwise, great, and be like, no, you can go, but like the model cover, since I love model covers, I keep them.
You're the first person I've ever heard say that. Usually I'm met with like, oh, I don't know if I like model covers because people don't like, other people knowing what they're reading, but I love a good model cover.
Well, so this is like me. Like, I don't read any of my paperbacks or hardcover. They just are my trophies. So it's always on Kindle. So it's not that anybody would like see what I read. Don't side eye me. We've had this conversation about like reading an actual book.
I know, I'm in the minority, so everyone shits on me when I say I actually read the special edition books. Like, I like to smell it and touch it.
Yeah. So even the ones with like the sprayed edges, you read those?
Sure do.
I don't.
Girl. I actually like physically could not make myself.
Yeah. Well, because they're usually like really stuck together in there. Like when like the proof that for want to play a game, I was like, oh, this is painful when I was like opening up to make sure everything was printed correctly. I was like,
right.
Oh, and you can hear it. Like I have to like separate the pages. I was just like, this is horrible. Like, why am I doing this today?
To each their own. I mean,
right.
It's your book. Like, you bought it. Like, you can do whatever you want with it. I think people have the same discussion with, like, annotating books. I've seen people get really, like, up in arms about people annotating books. And it's like, but, baby, they bought it with their own money. Like, it's their book.
I haven't figured out how to annotate. Like,
either.
I've seen tutorials, and I was like,
get it.
I feel like this is too much. Like, I know it's a reread, and then you actually, and I was like, but then I'm going to be like, I have that OCD, detail oriented. Like now I have to match and make sure everything's straight, and now it takes the fun out of it. I think like so. But I love seeing the pictures like on the side, the tabs, because it's colorful. And but I'm just like, I get that FOMO feeling. But then I was like, but then it's gonna be stressful because I don't know how to do it. Like, never mind.
I don't like. What are we highlighting here? I don't know. I'll just fucking highlight everything. I don't know.
I'll end up highlighting the whole book.
tab.
Right.
No.
Well, I mean, I've seen like it's not really instruction, but like what colors it's kind of like specifically for like the MMC or the FMC, and then certain emotions or something like that.
They'll do like spicy scenes or funny things or like heartbreaking, and they'll color code according to like what it is that they're highlighting. They're very organized. I couldn't do it. My handwriting is shit, so like I can't do it.
Yeah, because they do write some, right?
They do
on the side, like where because I wanted to do with Kolleen like the traveling book annotation, and I was like, oh, but that's gonna be too much for us. It will end up like we have paragraphs on the side because the border is very tiny. You can't really So when I see it's like, how are you writing on those? Like the border is tiny.
I don't know, maybe I'll give it a go. We'll see.
Let me know how it works.
Yeah. You know me, I'm not very consistent, so whatever. Oh, okay. So the last question, I think you already answered. We always ask what signing. So you're going to Rare, Sinners and Stardust. Did you go to Sinners and Stardust last year?
I did not, no.
Okay, because Marjorie went. Okay.
I know everybody that I love or like are going this year, and I was like, but
oh no.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm limiting myself to one a year because that's too much travel.
That is smart.
For me. And it's
sign up for 4. And I'm like, why did I do
that? And it gets stressful, especially like I have books. I'm buying books. It's like
right.
Like I can't. It's too much. And then I have to people like this.
I have to people. Yeah.
Well, I have an RBF. So this needs to like be smiling all the time or else I'm be like, that lady does not. It's just too much because I have to be thinking like, okay, what does my face look like right now? I have to make sure I'm friendly, meeting people.
Hey, listen, you could always just go masked and then people get up.
You got the right idea, sister.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And it's a cool one. It's a skull. I don't know. Yeah, it is. I'm at the age where it's like, it is what it is. You don't like my face? Better for me.
It's just
I'm too old for this shit.
Right. I think as you get older, it's almost like your people skills are like gone because you're just like, I don't have time. Like it's just but
why am I trying?
Right. But they are fun. I would say that they're fun to like meet the authors that you've been reading and just kind of like. It's almost like meeting a celebrity, like you meet them because you're just like, I just follow them, I read their books, but then you meet them, it's like they're so wonderful, like wonderful human beings. So hopefully I'll get to meet you. Right?
Yeah,
that'll be amazing.
Yeah, we're going to Wonderlust. Yeah.
Okay. Where?
Texas.
Texas.
Yes.
Okay. I've been trying to get more like southern and western signings in, but I'm from Ohio, so it's a haul if you go anywhere like west or south.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Ohio. Was that Wild and Windy?
Chicago.
Yeah, that one I can drive to. I'm so excited.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a friend who lives in Chicago, so it's going to be the perfect. It's my first signing, so it's going to be the perfect one. I can just go stay at her house.
It's your first? Oh,
It's my
I
first.
love that for you.
Oh, I'm excited, but also like terrified.
People are going to go feral over you.
Right.
I know it.
It's going to be fun.
Following.
Yeah. I'm going to be going feral over the other authors. I mean, what do you mean I have to stay at this table? Like, I want to go, like, see my friends. Like, what are you talking about?
Are you going to have, like, a PA with you? Like, that's going to be helping? Okay.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Just buy an extra mask that's like yours and then make them wear it while you run around. And then
Hey, look, that's Alina! And then I go running.
Right, run around, like, just meet your authors.
Right, because if you took the mask and the hat off and you went to go meet authors, no one would know.
I'm going to wear a different mask for signings. This one, like, is too hot.
Okay.
But, so I have, like, a little lacy one, which is going to be totally fine. But I'm excited. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah. Well, that's great. You got a fun-filled year ahead of you. Yeah, and it's exciting.
I'm jealous she's going to London.
I know.
It's going to be fun.
I'm not jealous about, like, the shipping and all that stuff.
Oh,
like
the logistical stuff.
Right,
yeah.
So you have at least 5 or 4?
4 signings, yes.
Signings.
Okay.
Wild and Windy, London, Rare, Sinners and Stardust, and then Tennessee LitCon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I heard good things about that one too.
Yeah.
We're thinking about going to that one, Tennessee.
You should. I think it's going to be like a more low-key signing, so I'm really excited because I'm excited to actually have time to like meet and chat with like readers, because I'm afraid with some of the bigger ones it's just going to be like so fast-paced, there's so many people, like you just don't get a chance to like really connect with people. So I think that one's going to be nice.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like with Sinners and Stardust, they get busy, and you know, us readers, we don't want to take up your whole time, especially when the line is getting longer and you're just like, sorry, I want to like see you, but there's a long line over here. But it's fun to see.
Yeah.
So I hope you know, like you have a great time. And
thank you.
Is Wild and Windy very busy? Like that
I think
signing?
they're big too.
They are big. Okay.
It's a huge signing, so that one will be interesting too. But it's gonna be so fun.
Yeah.
But at least like just dive in to like instead of like, oh, let's do a small one, and then you go to a big one there, you're like, you know, shocked. At least if when you go to like a smaller one, you'll be like, oh, this is like a almost like a vacation.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much. This was so fun. We're honored to have you on, and we can't wait to see those special editions. And it was just a pleasure meeting you.
It was nice to meet you guys too. Thank you for letting me chat.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was fun to get to kind of like, you know, see into kind of like quote unquote your mind how it works.
And thank you all for listening, and be sure to follow us on our socials, and make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any of our new episodes. If you have any authors you would like to see on our podcast, you can DM us on Instagram at Unfiltered Romance Nights. Well, that's all. See you next time.
Bye.